Good morning, everybody. That's a really powerful mic. How's everybody feeling? Good? We doing good? Okay. Today, we're going to talk a lot about cooling and thermoregulation for the next about 20-ish minutes. I'm trying to convey to you through this presentation that cooling is a very important aspect of everyone's lives, and we need to make sure that we understand different aspects of cooling before we go ahead and purchase something that is labeled cooling. So you'll see me speak a lot about how to clearly identify what will meet your needs when it comes to cooling fabrics. What is cool? What you need to know about the future of functional textiles. And when it comes to future of functional textiles, I will be concentrating mostly on the cooling part. Before we understand what is cool, why does cooling matter? Why are we even talking about it? We're talking about it because NASA put out this beautiful, beautiful map of the Earth that I really like beginning my presentations with, where they are showing the temperature difference on the planet Earth right now, and you see how much of it is really deep red, especially the northern part of North America. So the planet is getting hotter and hotter every single day, and we have a rapid acceleration of greenhouse gases that are accumulating in our atmosphere. And these greenhouse gases are trapping all the heat that is given out by the Earth and making it even harder for the Earth to cool down. We haven't exceeded 300 parts per million of carbon dioxide in 650,000 years until right now. And that is pretty crazy, that how we've taken all those 600,000 years of not exceeding that 300 parts per million and just thrown it all up in the air, and our emissions are pretty much through the roof. How many of you have pollen allergy in this room? Pollen allergy, yes. I mean, this is the worst season right now. You step outside and you're constantly popping allergy pills, and this year it is definitely breaking a lot of different records because our carbon dioxide emissions are at an all-time high. Plants around us are blooming at a much rapid rate, and they're also blooming earlier. That makes all the pollen out there really make it very intense. This is a trend line of what global warming can do to our allergies. Our allergies have gotten worse because plants are blooming in full strength, and there are more plants around. All the carbon dioxide is being consumed by these plants, and the pollen's out there to get you, basically. So yes, global warming is a big problem, and that's affecting human life. And the planet's getting hotter, and our clothes actually make this problem worse. Right now, if you just look around yourself, everybody's wearing some kind of blazer, a suit, something that's not extremely thermoregulating. You're not wearing something that's helping you stay cool because you have several different layers on your body. And what that does is trap all the heat and keeps it in on your body. And the industry of cooling really hasn't changed much for the past 2 decades. They've done wicking really, really well. So if you begin to sweat, they'll be able to take that sweat away from the surface of your skin, but really aren't providing a source of cool. And when I say source of cool, I mean a piece of ice. So when you put it on the palm of your hand, that's a source of cool. Who needs cooling? Who here can name like a profession? And we're going to do this little classroom activity. Just shout out a profession that you think that needs cooling. Sorry, I heard a voice from this side. Athletes, good. Manufacturing, very good. Do I hear firefighters? Cops on the road, construction workers, and you and me and every single person. Everybody needs cooling in their lives. Because when we're sitting in an office or in this conference room right now, we have our own little microclimate that's going on. And that microclimate really needs to have that aspect of cooling in it so that we can stay cool. And our extra layers is not just trapping all that heat and trapping all the sweat, but we're able to thermoregulate well. So each and every person in this room definitely needs cooling in their fabrics, and especially performance, where performance matters. Because when we have heat buildup in our body, we're not able to fully perform to our maximum human potential. Is wicking the only way to keep you cool? This is a very interesting question. It's like, do you have to sweat in order to keep cool? We do that naturally. Like, our human bodies are built to have that evaporative cooling, that as soon as you start sweating, the evaporation of sweat from the surface of your skin actually leaves behind that feeling of cool, which is amazing. Our bodies truly are thermoregulating. But what happens when you add a layer of fabric on it, and another fabric, and another fabric? It's unable to do that evaporative cooling well. It's unable to do the conduction and the radiation and the convection. So wicking works really well when you're not wearing 3 or 4 different layers, but when you are, we need something else. This slide captures really well in one slide in how do we thermally balance our body heat. Heat is produced because of metabolism, so when you eat your breakfast, body's breaking that down and producing heat and energy to keep you going. We also add on heat to our body because of environmental conditions. So when you're in a hot place, your body tends to get more and more heated up. How do we lose heat? We lose heat by conduction, by convection, and by evaporation. And the last aspect is radiation. If you look at that chart on the right side, you can see the heat loss over temperature, and you can see how the total heat loss is attributed to evaporation, radiation, convection, and conduction. And the most powerful aspect, the most amount of heat is lost due to evaporation. And evaporation is the way that we're able to lose heat a lot, but we also want to concentrate on the other aspects. Our fabrics actually obstruct the evaporation, so we want to make sure that our fabrics are conductive, are able to radiate, have convection, and so on and so forth. Can our clothes actually help us cool down? Our clothing can help us cool down and can help us thermoregulate, and that's why we created the triple chill effect to enhance cooling of our fabrics and our everyday fabrics. So we took 3 very simple but powerful aspects of thermoregulation, that is providing a source of cool to keep you cool. So that will be our cooling minerals, which is this little tiny thing over here. We embed cooling minerals into the polymer that undergo endothermic reactions. And these cooling minerals are supported by active wicking that our yarns do, and active drying. So taking all these 3 aspects, we're able to fully thermoregulate a person's body. And this is a better picture of how we do it. So these cooling minerals actually are, they were found pretty organically. So I was going to do a poll of ladies who do cooling masks on their face. Like, I mask a lot. I know it doesn't show, but if you can imagine cooling masks, the way that it's able to pull heat away from your skin because it's a source of cool, think of the cooling minerals to be something like that. Once they're embedded in the yarn, they're able to draw out the heat from the surface of your skin and use it in their endothermic reactions that drives it forward And the byproduct of that is the cooling. Active wicking and rapid drying support the functions of the cooling minerals, and you're kept comfortable, cool and dry throughout the day. We have been able to test our cooling minerals in 2 different synthetic polymers. So we do cooling nylon and cooling polyester to start with, and we're hoping to expand in other synthetic platforms like acrylic, polypropylene, so on and so forth. We've also expanded into denim and rayon. So on the left, you'll see a core sheath construction of denim. So the outside is actually cotton, so it's a wrapping of cotton, and on the very inside is spandex, the gray circle over there. We wanted to make sure that the spandex really is protected when it comes to stretch and recovery. After wearing your jeans after a long time, have y'all noticed that it kind of starts to sag a little bit, and you kind of want that same kind of stretch recovery from your denim day in and day out till the rest of its life? So we've tried to protect the spandex from wear and tear by putting it in the very center, and then we've surrounded it by core sheath spinning of nylon and polyester. Nylon and polyester here actually have our patented cooling minerals, so the cooling actually is on the inside of your jeans. And then to make sure that it has the same cottony feel of denim, the natural feel of denim, we've added an extra layer of cotton yarn on the very outside. When it comes to rayon, and I feel like a lot of people have had experience with rayon in this room. I had a terrible experience with rayon when I was when I first got it. I didn't understand that it had really bad shrinkage properties, and it also would wrinkle really bad. And I bought this new dress, and I was really excited about it, wore it, popped it in the washer, popped it in the dryer, and came out as a crop top. And that was pretty, that was devastating to me, because I really, really had invested in this dress. So that's where the idea of let's make a more robust rayon. Let's make it shrink less and wrinkle less. So that's what we did with our rayon. Our rayon yarn shrinks about 47% less than traditional rayon, because again, we've used that core sheath structure where we've made it more robust using nylon and polyester, and which is on the inside, and the rayon or the lyocell or the tencel can go on the outside, so that you still get that feeling of rayon, and you can have the same hand and drape as traditional rayon, but it shrinks less and wrinkles less. All of this, these amazing creations don't really have an impact unless we're able to prove that it actually cools. So part of a case study that we did was, how can we objectively prove that clothing actually cools? And that's when we dig into the testing. We test rigorously everything that we put out in the market. We measure the instantaneous heat loss. So as soon as the first time that you touch a fabric, what do you feel? And the Qmax test gives a really good visual on that. But that's just the initial touch. We measure the wicking power, so to make sure that it wicks really well, so when you're running and sweating and running errands, that it's able to pick up that sweat and transport it throughout the fabric. The wicking power, or the ATCC 197, gives a really good idea of how quickly it can wick away. We check its thermal conductance. Now, this is a test that helps us with long-term cooling. It tells you over a period of time, how can we understand how well it wicks over a standard area. So we're able to really standardize long-term cooling with that. We also can standardize long-term cooling using thermal effusivity, because we have a unit of time in thermal effusivity. And these two aspects were used to understand how well your fabric will thermoregulate. You put it on a person, and what is the feeling that they get in an hour, in 90 minutes, so on and so forth. We also dug in deeper and wanted to understand how it does on a thermal mannequin. So we were able to do this with NC State and, go Wolf or Wolfpack or whatever they are. So they were able to put our shirts and our competitors' shirts on a thermal mannequin and really tell us what the thermal mannequin feels over a period of 30 minutes. So we're able to set a metabolic rate, and here the metabolic rate is 1, so it's a standard metabolic rate where I think all of us right now are experiencing that. We're sitting down and there isn't a lot of rigorous activity, but we really wanted to see if we're able to cool down the body of the thermal mannequin, and we did. So the blue line over there that shows the most drop in temperature, which in degrees Celsius is almost 2 degrees over there. And as we kept testing for over an hour, over 2 hours, the drop in temperature was even more. So it kind of shows you objectively how the cooling technology is able to drop temperature. We had the director of atmospheric sciences at University of Georgia kind of give us a shout out, because he talks a lot about global warming and how human activity is actually making all of our daily lives more difficult. So he quoted that innovative fabrics and approaches offer some hope to recover from global warming. If we're able to put out products that do passive cooling, that don't require energy to cool a person down, we're actually saving that energy that you would have used, and we're also keeping a person cool, so we're able to regulate the temperature of a room based on just wearing a cooling jacket or wearing a cooling shirt, so you don't have to really drop the temperature of a room to keep yourselves at a good temperature. And he said that Brrr technology has demonstrated that it's able to reduce skin temperature by almost 3 degrees Fahrenheit over 20 minutes, and that was the thermal mannequin that we looked at. So he was quoting that study, which is pretty incredible that just a small little aspect of a fabric like cooling can have such a big impact. Where does cooling technology go next? And that's a really good question, because we've seen a lot of different cooling technologies. We've seen active cooling technologies, which is basically running cold water through a vest that people in the military currently use. They're basically running cold water through a jacket, making sure that the soldier and the people on the field are kept cool. We've seen passive cooling technologies like PCMs or finishes or cooling minerals like you just saw. Where is it headed next? These are a couple of really exciting new technologies that I wanted to highlight. These were done at Stanford. So on the left, you'll see a Saharan silver ant, and that was the inspiration for this study. This Saharan silver ant actually reflects sunlight because of the little hair that you can see on its body. And what it does is it makes the ant IR transparent. So what it's doing is reflecting IR, and IR actually is the wavelength that heats you up. And so mimicking that, at Stanford, people created this little piece of polyethylene that's IR transparent, so it doesn't heat up when sunlight or IR waves are reflected off of its surface. And this is done using nanopores. So the radiative human cooling by nanoporous polyethylene, that's a new study that I think is very exciting, because when it comes to cooling, you also want to make sure that whatever you put on the body is radiating all of the heat, and this is what they're trying to demonstrate with the polyethylene. So nanotechnology definitely is where we're going with the cooling industry. We're also going into sustainable cooling. So Fiona's presentation kind of talked about it a little bit, about how a lot of companies now are thinking of recycled polymers and all the savings in energy and in water and how much we can recycle. So that's another aspect where we're definitely going. We're taking our cooling minerals and we're putting them in recycled polyester melt or recycled polyester or nylon melt, and we're trying to create sustainable cooling fabrics and yarns, and that's where the cooling technology is headed. That was the end of the presentation, and I look forward to y'all's questions at the end of the panel. Thank you guys so much.